if you're an athlete before your accident, you want to be an athlete after. And it's just great to have the technology and all the stuff out there, which has filled the empty spots in my life. I love getting up and watching the day start. It reminds me that every day is a new start. It doesn't matter what happened the day before. This day can be different. You can change things. You can make them happen. That's why I love getting out and riding bike.
Well, it was on a Sunday afternoon, August the 13th, 1978, when we got the first phone call, which was late afternoon. And it was one of Mike's friends. He called to say that Mike was in an accident and everything's going to be okay. He does have 2 broken legs, but that's all we knew till later, about 10:30 that evening then is when the bomb dropped because they weren't sure he would survive.
And I remember 24 hours later waking up in the hospital at Foothills Hospital in the city of Calgary. Of course, I remembered I was on a motorcycle trip, knew I was in a hospital, figured I must have had an accident, but wasn't able to talk or speak at that time yet. Reading the accident report, they said I rear-ended a car that was pulling out on the highway. Whether he never saw me coming, I'm not sure, but hit the back end of the car. It threw me up off the bike. I was banged up pretty bad. They actually didn't expect me to make it.
Literally from the neck down, his ribs were broken front and back, and he had internal injuries.
When I was in the hospital, when the doctor told me that you broke your back, you severed your spinal cord, you're never going to walk again, not only was I angry at him, but I was angry at God. How can you do this to me? How can you let something like this happen? And I struggled with that. And of course that anger and that frustration of wanting to do what I used to do, wanting to be able to play ball again, to climb a tree, to run across the yard, to go snow skiing. I think about those things and it just made me more angry because I couldn't do it anymore. And not as much in the hospital as when I was finally discharged from rehab did those feelings and that struggle really hit home. When you start getting into day-to-day activities, that's when depression really sunk in my life. And that anger started to build up. And I'm not a person that I'll let it out right away. It would bottle up inside of me and a lot of times explode on people that were next to me at that time.
So going into his accident, you know, a major change for him, and I can imagine in his mind, he's not sure what to do with it, what to make of it. So in that time frame, it was hard to get words out of him.
About 1 month after my accident, my grandpa Zook passed away. And he was taken from this earth because of colon cancer. I visited my grandpa Zook in the hospital before I left on the motorcycle trip and had an eerie, weird feeling that this was the last time I was going to see him.
Because my father had asked the grandsons if they would carry him to his resting place. They would be the pallbearers. And Mike promised him he would.
Which, because of my injury, I wasn't able to be with him his last days and even attend his memorial service that they have for him. But I remember my mom coming up to the hospital after his service to share with me those last couple days. And she said, Grandpa Zook, we call him Paw Paw, during his last moments, opened his eyes, looked at her, and said that Mike's going to be all right. Probably the biggest thing that made an impact on me was my family, my friends. let me know that it's okay for you to be angry. It's okay for you to struggle like that. We're still going to love you. We're still going to be there for you. And they showed that to me. And it's what really pulled me out of that difficult time in my life.
I don't know if there was anyone that there was a moment that did it for him, but there was one day where he decided that if he's going to get out of this bed, it's going to have to be him. And at that point, it all started.
I heard of two guys that had crossed from San Francisco to New York, George Murray and Phil Carpenter, who are kind of our pioneers of wheelchair sports here in America. And I thought about that idea of pushing across country. And I said, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. I want to do it. Instead of going coast to coast, I ought to do something a little different.
He's going to do this wild idea trip from Fairbanks, Alaska to Washington. When he came to me with this crazy idea, he asked if I would go along, would be a part of the support team, and the one thing, obviously I was excited about it in my younger years and really didn't have much of a care in the world, and I was like, sure, I'll drop, a job and whatever and take off and do it.
And looking back on how that whole trip started, I didn't think I could do it. I wanted to quit after 3 days into the trip because I just wasn't getting down the highway doing the miles that I needed to and thinking that I could do. I thought I trained hard enough, but getting out there and pushing every day just really took a toll on my arms, my hands, and until I got into the routine, it was frustrating and again, just losing sight of my goal.
It was ugly at times. I just wanted to hook to him and drag him up the hill. I think back to that time and how did, getting through it, again, reminded me of moments back at his rehab when he said nothing and we just sat in the room. There's times where he just pulled over on these long, couple 3, 4, 5 mile grades of a hill that he had to push. And I just thought, how are we ever going to get to Washington at this rate?
High school students that spent the 4th day with me helped me to get that focus back. And that day that I spent with them was the first day I put in 60 miles.
Going back to his determination, there was no way. I said this is what I was going to do, and there's no backing out now. And he pushed every square inch of that 5,600 mile trip.
And I was trying to figure out what made the difference. And it was constant questions and just a fun time of having someone with me that whole day, a group of 20 to 30 high school students, asking questions of what's Lancaster County like, what's it going to be like when you get to DC, is President Reagan going to be there to meet you? Some questions I didn't have answers for, but I was forgetting what was behind me and I was striving forward to what lies ahead. They kept my mind off of my hands hurting, my shoulders hurting, that emotional, mental frustration of not being able to do what I thought I could do. And I was looking at where I was trying to go. I thought to myself, if I can do that the rest of this summer, I'm going to make it to DC. I'm going to get there.
From Edmonton all through the States to Washington, it seemed to have grown more and more. A lot of news team media picking up on what's going on, what Mike King is doing, and the calls that it was for. And yeah, it seemed to grow each week or each day.
Well, see, we met him in St. Louis, and he had just come over the mountains there, and he was fried. His skin was brown, his nose was blistered just from the heat and the sun. And I said, Mike, we're taking you along home with us. You're just you came this far, you achieved a lot. No, he said, I'm finishing this.
It's amazing, obviously there's a lot of time between there until he got into the East Coast here. But when I first time I saw him, he was just like this machine that you just couldn't shut down. You can succeed when you set your mind to it. It was pretty incredible to be in Washington, watching him come down Pennsylvania Avenue and the whole thing to the end. It was a huge celebration.
And I can remember that day coming up over the crest and finally seeing the Capitol building. And it's like, wow, I made it.